This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from People Forward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self.
Hey everybody, it's Rosie. So this is a conversation that if you are a person who is a CEO of an organization, leads an organization, you are the CEO of your life, you work in an organization, you're going to want to listen to. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with Tim Leman, who is the CEO of a company called Gibson, and they are an employee-owned, they're growing, they're just doing amazing things. And we have some really practical talks about what do they do in practice, that how they leverage their systems and how they leverage processes to really have consistency that has led to their speed, that has led to their growth, that has led to their success, while putting humans and relationships at the forefront. So it's a really nice mix of practicality, what this looks like in practice, where there's been missteps, things to be thinking about. Tim's very open and transparent about talking about kind of where he's learned that his strengths are and where he's learned he gets in people's way. I just think there's a lot of really good nuggets in here of an organization that is putting the principles that we talk about all the time into practice and having great success as a result. Take a listen. Tim, welcome. I am excited to have, I don't know if it's going to be a geek out section so much as it's just going to be a really awesome discussion around people-centered leadership, which you model so well. So I don't know why it took me so long to get you on the show, but just thank you for being here.
Hey, well, you had a lot of really special guests, so I'm happy to fill in. No, hey Rosie, I'm thrilled to be on with you too, and it's fun to reconnect with you.
Better late than never.
That's right.
Well, good. Well, obviously, we've already talked about you in the intro and, CEO of a well-known growing firm, Gibson. We'll talk about what's next. I know you've just expanded and we'll get to all of that. And I think why I'm so excited to have you on is that there is such alignment with how we've been talking about rehumanizing workplaces and future-proofing leadership and teams for a long, long time. And you really embody that and you model that. And so I'm excited to have a very practical conversation around what does this look like in practice, and whether people, if you're listening, doesn't matter if you're a CEO or not, hearing from someone who's a CEO of a successful company that is leading and living these principles, and no one's perfect, but doing a really, really stellar job. I just think there's a lot to it. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to enlighten.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I want to start, I was trying to think of where to start because there's so many places that we could start. And in our work, and we were just talking about our forthcoming book, Future Proofing Leadership, we always talk about that, the core to having an effective, thriving human workplace culture that also has the numbers behind it is that you have to have future ready leaders. Leaders are the cornerstone of your culture, like it or not. And in our work, we talk about kind of like a three-pronged approach, or like a three-legged stool to that. There's the individual development, which has to focus on that inner messy human stuff that we like to skip over, and faulty programs and mindsets and all that stuff, and then work on outer skills, which a lot of people skip past. Then you have this second part, which is really team-based courage building work, because we transform in relationships, not by ourselves. And so having teams that are psychologically safe, that are giving one another feedback, that are speaking up, pushing one another, but also have shared language and tools to help support one another is a super, super critical piece that I think gets overlooked. And then the third is really systems for sustained impact. So you can't take a changed person and put them in an unchanged environment and expect it to be any different, but also we're human beings who are flawed. And so we need to have systems in place as like a fail safe, or as a safety net, if you will, for when our humanness gets the best of us. And they all three need to work hand in hand. And so I want to start with, let's just talk even about like kind of team-based stuff, because one of the things that's so critical, going back to Jim Collins 101, is that you have to have the right seats on the bus and the right people in those seats. And you have a really deliberate approach to making sure that that happens as best as possible at Gibson. Talk to me about how you're nurturing that idea of the right seats on the bus and the right people in those seats.
Well, Rosie, you hit on some key stuff there. And it's taken a lot of years, I think, to pull all this together and to get better at it. But you are absolutely right. The right people is so key. And so one of the things, like I feel like I made a mistake early on as a leader, I'm a galvanizer, I'm a cheerleader, I'm excited, I'm a sales jockey, I think, at my core. And so I'm a natural recruiter, and I'd be out finding, talented people. They weren't always the right fit for us, but when I was really involved on the front end of sourcing them and then also making decisions on the back end that we should move forward, I tended to have bias and like the people I liked, and they were talented people, but they weren't always a right fit for us. So we put in a process here and put me in a spot that I love being in. That's my energy zone. And that's on the front end. I like getting people kind of lathered up about coming to Gibson. And I'm certainly scrutinizing and looking for a fit with our values and the right kind of people for Gibson. But I gave up the part of making the final decision of our people and let my team do that, through the course of the interviews. And our success rate has gone way up since doing that. And I'll still jump in from time to time. I think if they're not seeing an angle that I see, that this particular skill set or this superpower that this candidate has could take us to that next level, I want to make sure they really think that through. But for the most part, I step out of the way, and then they make the call, and we get kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, I love it you recognize where you have strengths, right, and where you're overusing. So I think we talk about this, like galvanizing is my top strength on the Working Genius as well, and I can over galvanize for sure. For sure. But I do think that, like, as the CEO, part of your role really is to tell the story and get people excited about the culture and the values, because when you're sharing it, they're hearing it from you, and that it carries a different weight perhaps than other people. So I think that is a sweet spot. But talk about too, because I know that you talk about like staying in your lane and letting others do what they do, but also the role that you use of assessments to really determine, like, how do you know that they are the right fit, not just that you like them, because so often that happens in the interview process, right? We like someone, they look good on paper, or we mesh well in the interview and we're like, "Oh, they'll be a great fit." And then you find out like they're really not. Like, I've had this before on teams where you really like the person and you start talking to them, and then we use certain assessments and find out, oh crap, like we interviewed them for the wrong role, because they are going to be miserable, because the fundamental what we need them to do, they sold themselves, sure, I'd be happy doing it, they're going to be freaking miserable. So talk to me about the processes you have in place to try to help make sure you're allowing people to play in their geniuses, if you will, and to have the right people in the right roles.
Yeah, so it starts even at the very beginning. So I spend a lot of time recruiting. I've realized that, yeah, I do. I love telling our story, and I think I'm so equipped to do it. And I know for a lot of CEOs, they're uncomfortable or they may not want to do it this way. But for me, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn on purpose, telling stories about our people, my experiences with them. I mean, and it's easy for me to do. I mean, I just love being out in the field with all of them and seeing what's going on. But I use that then and do a lot of my work then on LinkedIn. And so I'll send direct messages to people, on a Sunday evening, and I'll get back this, it's like, are you a bot or are you real? And then once it's real, and then I just tell them, hey, I've heard you're somebody that I should know. And we start a conversation off that way, and it gives me a chance to really tell it. And I think most people don't have that experience of being recruited by the CEO. And so most of them are curious, and they'll take a meeting and a call, and then from there, if they like our story, it's easy to get them connected with the rest of our people. But little things to me I watch for, and it's not that there's a right or a wrong response from a particular candidate. I try to keep it all in context of, okay, if I'm messaging them on a Sunday night and they don't know me from anybody, I can't expect a response right away. But then again, if I do get a response right away, that tells me something as well. Do I get a response by Tuesday? Do I never get a response? So I start kind of putting together pieces and with a filter kind of mentally of our values of, hey, this person is kind of, responsive, and we tend to be a pretty responsive sort of company. So I'm able to kind of build that up, even how they respond, how they talk, all those kind of things, their language. And so I'm doing that kind of intuitively through my own filter. When I get them passed over to our internal team, then we start in on the next phase of the process. Fairly early on, we like to do a couple of assessments for every role. And we think that's just a good fail safe. And I tell candidates all the time, Rosie, like, this is just as much for you as it is for us. We don't want to make a mistake for you or for us. I don't want to ruin your life. I don't want you to leave a great organization. We tend to hire people that already have a good job at a good company. We just think that maybe we fit even a little bit better for them. And I don't want them to make a bad choice, and I don't want us to make a bad choice. So we get in and do these assessments, and we like to make sure that the assessment and the experience we had in those interviews line up really well together. For us, we have one that we use really across the board, Kolbe, Kolbe. We really like that. And those 4-digit codes kind of help us, and we're able to put those together. And gosh, nowadays, I guess the Kolbe people may not love this, but nowadays, with chat and everything too, it's you can do a lot of your own work, even comparing the candidate's Kolbe score with whoever they're going to be working with or reporting to. And then based upon the role, we'll either use maybe Working Genius, which I know, as you said, you've got experience with. You and I share that galvanizer trait, or especially for salespeople, and we hire a lot of salespeople in our business, we use another one called Sales Drive. And so we put all those together. And that was one of those things, though, that we built into the process and we've been doing testing at Gibson for years, like 30 years here, before my 20 years here. But I always found us when we wanted to, we just ignored the test. Like, well, yeah, but, they're great, whatever. And it's like, well, why are we doing the
The
test?
data doesn't lie, people. Yeah.
And I try to explain that to people too. And it's not that in a moment anybody can't act outside of their testing. It's just that on a normal basis over the course of time, we're going to revert to the mean. We're going to look a lot like what our testing says. So anyway, that's been an invaluable part. And then we have a short form that we have people fill out called Getting to Know You. And it's kind of that simple. And we've got 5 questions we ask them. Again, no right or wrong answers. It's who are a couple of people in your career that you'd love to emulate, some heroes you've had. And sometimes people talk about their parents, their grandparents. It might be a favorite boss, and just some normal situations like that. And we just love to hear people's stories, whatever they are. And those, again, help us start seeing whether they're a good mix. So by the time then we get into the deep dive of having, maybe 3 or 4 people that they're going to work closely with, go through a face-to-face with them, we've got a pretty good idea of who they are at that point in time. So that process, though, has, taken success rates, like salespeople success rates, for instance, in our industry are maybe, 30, 40%. And we've moved into the close to 70% success range now on those roles by following this process, by being disciplined, by me not, coming in and causing havoc and all that. And I know that we've also then done right by a lot of candidates who we didn't get them to come over, and it probably wasn't going to be a fit.
There's so much about that I love, but I love one of the last things you said is, it's a process. So going back to these systems, the systems part of kind of the three-legged stool, if you will, is that, I just like this person or whatever. It is a fail safe for really helping to counteract that, we like this person, or we think they'll be good, or we're trying to make them fit, versus it actually is. So going back to, let's follow the process and follow the systems. They're there for a reason, and they can be helpful. And I love that they've taken your success rate. I mean, I can't do math, but right from 30 to 70%, that's a huge jump. So there we go. So I'm curious with that. So with having this assessment data, and again, there's a lot of them out there that can be used. Once they're hired, do you then find you have processes and systems in place to use that, like at a team-based level, so that they know how to interact and where there's gaps and where they're going to be frustrated with one another? So going into kind of that second part of our 3-legged stool or 3-phase process, which is that team-based courage building, when you understand how one another works, and when you know where you might have friction and where you have frustration and where to lean on each other, and you really can use data to help inform how you work together, that just really elevates a team. How are you using it post-hire to help with that part?
Well, Rosie, here's a little scorecard, by the way, that we have. This is for our leadership team and then our 2 executive assistants who support various people. And so all of our Kolbe scores are on there. It's laminated. I just had it in my desk drawer. And that's the team that I spend most of my time with. We talk about it all the time in those quarterly meetings. We have quarterly planning. And I know our other teams use this as well. But we should bring it up like, okay, I know that I'm the quick start in the group, so I'm probably doing this faster than everybody would like, and I appreciate that. But here's what kind of comes to mind to me. And likewise, our processors will say, hey, I'm a processor. I need more time. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that, of how we deliver big things. I can speak for myself probably as much as anything. If I know it's one of the gifts I bring to our team is that I ideate all the time. We're barely walking out of a quarterly planning meeting. I probably fired 4 texts off to move my rocks along for the quarter and get everything moving. And so I can help us launch big things, which is great. I've got a different gear than everybody else on my team has with that, but I can wear people out too. And I can cause them to think that they need to respond as fast as I respond and move things as quickly. So some of that how we use it on an ongoing basis is just those reminders of the other 7 8 people. 1 or 2 can roll with me at that same speed. Almost everybody else needs a little more time, so I need to do a better job, a day beforehand, 2 days beforehand, lay out what's on my mind and let them know and say, hey, when you come to the meeting, then I want you to already be thinking about these kind of things. And those little things like that help so much along the way. Also help everybody understand where they're coming from. So we try to keep infusing that as we go along. We have a full-time leader in our learning area, and so she runs a lot of those continuous kind of programs, and that's why we love having 2 or 3 different tests, because we'll pull some of the other ones back out that we don't use as often and just kind of have a reminder session to help everybody out. And Rosie, this type of stuff, I mean, I've always been an intuitive, just go kind of person. And it was probably about 10 years ago when it really struck me of I just couldn't figure out why things fell apart once they get much beyond my arm's length. And it was a me thing, and it just needed process. And although I don't naturally design process, I've fallen in love with it, and I need people around me who do a great job with that. But then I'll live with it because it actually is the thing that allows the speed to happen, which I need the speed, I need that to happen. And the process really does it. But I've gotten, so believe in all this too, that my poor family, I've drugged them through this as well. So my wife and my 3 kids, I got 23, 21, and 16-year-old. They've all had their Kolbes. We have them all matched up with each other. My oldest 2, one's in college and one's out. They both live in Indianapolis, and they decided to live together this year. So we were sitting around one Saturday, and I put their Kolbes in and said, give me a roommate guide for these 2 knuckleheads. How are they going to do together? And, we all laughed about it because it was funny, but it's so true. And fortunately, at 23 and 21, they figured out the things that bothered them a lot when they were, 11 and 9. The 11-year-old couldn't handle the messiness of the 9-year-old, but they've got it dialed in now.
Oh my God. I love that you got a roommate guide. That's fantastic. Well, so literally for those of you that are just listening, he did pull out like a laminated card. And I love that because there is, whether you're using Kolbe or Working Genius, or we'll do YOS Discovery and go like 9 deep and you can see how people work. There is something about seeing one another's type, profile, whatever the assessment is looking at, because they all have I'm like a big believer of do a bunch of them, because any one in my mind is incomplete, but use the value for whatever you're looking for. Like Working Genius is great for like what phase of work are we in and who do we need to lean on and the frustration and all of those types of things, and making sure that we're not tapping out or we're leaning on the right people to and have the right meetings and all of those things. And what I love about the YOS Discovery is it kind of gets at the motivators and what drives you, right? That then can feed into whether it's Kolbe or whether it's Hogan or whether it's, Insights or Predictive Index or all these other ones. But what I love about how you're using it is how we advocate for it is like you have to understand your team profile. Like we have an executive team that we're working with, and in using the YOS Discovery, they realized there was 2 people on that team that were always super frustrated, and they would walk out of these exec meetings every week like, I'm not clear of what we're supposed to do. Well, they have clarify as their how, and you look, and the CEO and all the other execs have clarify like down in their number 8 or 9, which means it's not a big deal for them, and they think they're being clear, but they're not, or they're getting annoyed with the person who's asking questions trying to get clarity. So what was really cool to hear is then like a week or 2 later, they said, yeah, I'm noticing that this one person is saying, hey, before we leave, are you clear? Is this clear? And even like the CEO is starting to say, I'm trying to be really clear and state the obvious. Let me know if it's not. So it allows them to start to use language like your point, Tim, of regulating. Oh, I know I tend to go fast. Like knowing ourselves and knowing how to regulate it, but within the context of other people, so that we can be authentically us, but not in a way that diminishes other people's ability to also bring their best foot forward. I always say, like, yes, we shouldn't dim our sparkle, but we can't like let our sparkle be so freaking bright that it overshadows somebody else's sparkle. Like we all have an opportunity to shine and contribute.
Agreed. That's a great way to say it. I love that. And in the past I would have had my feelings hurt by this, and nowadays I actually appreciate it. Of I'll either get uninvited or not invited to a meeting. I'll be told about it, like, we aren't ready for you yet, and you'll just be frustrated in this meeting, and then you'll bother us. So sit a couple plays out, and we're gonna pull you back in when we're ready. And I actually, again, my ego would appreciate it. Now I'm like, great, I got some time back, and they know when to use me, and we don't get our feelings hurt about any of those kind of things.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the value of having this at a team level. You can speak the same language, you know what you mean, oh, okay, like we don't need you yet because you know what that means. Because when we bring you in, it's go time. Well, we're not at go time yet. We're still processing, or we're still discerning, or we're still whatever. So I love everything about that. And I think hopefully for those of you that are listening, like be thinking about at your team level, leadership team level, what does that look like? Because the nice thing about whatever assessment you do use within your organization, if you're not, consider starting with one, but it is having that common language and knowing what makes one another tick that is the key to those relationships being effective. And so we're leveraging people in the best way possible. In healthcare, they talk about it being at the top of your licensure. In other fields, they just talk about is this the best use of your time? And it's not about a job being better than the other. It's about everyone has the same amount of time and energy. Like, here's what we're hiring you for. Here's the strategic objectives we're trying to achieve, our purpose, our mission and values that surround it, and how do we make the best use of everybody here. If you're a galvanizer and that's where you're best suited, don't put you in a bunch of spreadsheets sitting behind a wall, like, and someone else vice versa, like, please don't make me be out in front of people, but this is where I can shine. Like, we all deserve that opportunity. I love that you've systematized it.
You're right, Rosie, on that, and I think you're especially right about all of these assessments. I mean, everybody has to figure out what works best for their organization and fits. But the permission that I think, at least it gave me of, oh yeah, I kind of knew I didn't really like some of those other things. I just thought it came with the job. I thought the job had to be like this, and I had to do these other things. They were kind of energy sucking areas versus energy generating areas, and you get people doing where their natural zone is and what they do best and leaning into that. It doesn't feel like work a whole lot. And what you produce and get out of it is so much better.
Well, and so speaking of systems and really in clarity and anchoring people, I mean, obviously Gibson's been successful. You've had a lot of growth. You're in growth mode again. You're doing really, really well. And one of the things that we see a lot is that when organizations are growing at whatever stage they are, it can be so common that the purpose and the values and the culture and everything starts to get diluted. And then when you have multiple locations and you're going to have subcultures, but you start to hear an us versus them, like they feel like they're the stepchild versus the main headquarter office and those types of things. And you've done a pretty good job of trying to have that cohesion regardless of where people are at with Gibson. Talk to me about how you've really leveraged your systems, if you will, but to really help people feel part of kind of one Gibson, if you will, versus like feeling like they're that stepchild or they're that satellite office that doesn't matter as much or isn't as important.
We early on, we not only didn't get it right, I mean, we did a terrible job at it. And so, we'd open an office, say 150 miles away. It's a car ride away. And people did not feel connected, weren't on the same page, and so on. And we got better at all of that. And so when we decided to start expanding out in the Mountain West from the Midwest, now we're 1,500 miles away. We're different time zones. And I give a lot of credit to having an operating system in place. For us, we've used EOS traction for 8 or 9 years, which a lot of people are familiar with. But much like the assessments, there are plenty of operating systems out there. And what became apparent to us around 2020, 2021, when we were getting ready to do this major expansion, is how big of a deal that was. That was kind of helped us keep our cultural flame, if you will, because everybody was in at least one weekly meeting with their smallest subunit of a team, and they had this common agenda. And so that was part of, like, here's a Gibson way of doing it. And you didn't have to sit around and wonder, is somebody going to come on board me today or not? Or is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Because there was always this weekly cadence where you were in a meeting with your peers and your supervisor, and it was an open opportunity to talk and bring up the issues that are going on, have them addressed, get them on a list, get them solved and moved forward. And so that is a huge part of that is I think this smallest subunit team, this whether it's 4 people or 6 or 3 or 8, but that small little group that you're a part of, you have a normal place to be able to raise an issue so that you don't stew on it and wonder where it's all at. And then the connected part to that is that we've got, I think, a really great cadence put together, and we just continue to get more and more transparent, authentic as we do this. We just don't know any other way than to do it this way. So every quarter, our leadership team is together. We go through, we rate how we did, we give ourselves a grade, and then we share all that with our entire company. Everybody's either, zoomed in or we're in person together at the same time. And we go through and talk about, hey, here's what we did well. Here's where we did not get it done for you as leaders. Here's what we're going to focus on next. And that clarity and that common language that gets said again and again and again, it just becomes kind of second nature. So it has made an absolute world of difference when I talk to friends, peers out there who have also expanded and deal with some of that. And I appreciate what you said when you started this. It's not that we're perfect, because we are not. I was just out west in New Mexico and Utah with our team. And it was great because I heard some frontline things that, oh, yep, you know what? We've had a couple of things slip we need to work on. We need to fix. And, it's great to hear that firsthand. But in general, you could talk to I think you could randomly put a phone call into anybody on our roster, and I think they would be able to tell you the big picture portions of our vision. I think they'd be able to tell you what most of our values off the top of their head and share those. And it's made a world of difference, across the board.
Well, and I think so often, I think you and I are wired very similarly, where I appreciate systems and I know they're needed. And obviously, we have them as a critical part of this three-pronged approach or three-legged stool. And I don't want to be the one to create them, or I want to poke my eyes out with a toothpick, right? I'm like, oh God. But when you know what the guardrails are, it gives you parameters to then know where you have freedoms or where you can stretch or where you can grow. But it also, to your point, even our team, which is small, without some of these systems in place, you end up working over one another. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. It's not efficient. It's clunky. It causes frustrations. And so people who feel constrained by systems, it's actually the opposite when they're done well, right? They actually can be that catalyst for speed and that catalyst for growth. And I love that you've systematized the reflecting and looking at yourselves and systematize the transparent communication, because so often as organizations grow, you're not getting that transparent communication. You're not having that. The pace gets ahead of you where you forget to take that time to actually reflect and to communicate back and to bring people along, which is critical. It's counterintuitive. You have to sometimes pause and slow down to speed back up.
You're absolutely right. It takes this constant repetition to be doing that. And we take it so seriously. And again, I'm really involved with a lot of our growth. So other CEOs might structure their roles differently, but part of that galvanizing and so on, I enjoy kind of that teaching and sharing. And so literally in a lot of these new offices, I had probably a big hand in recruiting many of the people out there. So we have a good relationship that way, and I'll actually sit in on their weekly meetings for the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months maybe, and just help with actually how to run a good process then. So it's not enough just to give them the tools and this is our process, but nope, we didn't. Let's go back and do that again. Or if I notice somebody wasn't speaking up or they wanted to, like, this is going to feel different. And I've had people say that have been at other organizations that are used to the meeting after the meeting after the meeting. I'm like, we aren't walking out of here and not flushing it all out. You may not get your way today. You may not like what you hear, but we're going to hear it. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to get it all out in the meeting. And that actually is going to save everybody time. So yes, I'm going to be that stickler about same time every week. We're going to have this meeting. It's going to start and stop and, end on time, start on time. Going to have the same kind of agenda to it, but it's going to actually bring back a lot of time to all of us because of the clarity that we'll get when we all are on the same page and know what's going on and doing it. So yeah, I think you're right. When I first started thinking about or learning about how an operating system could really help us, it sounded like everything I would hate. I think it's been on my report card for a long time that I chaff at authority. I kind of do my own thing. Like easily since the 3rd grade, it's been something that my parents have, had to deal with. But it's surprisingly actually that what I thought would be restrictive is exactly the thing that helped us speed up and do more and achieve more and accomplish more by just investing a little bit of time to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, right? So, a newfound love for systems. I love it. So you talked about like that, you had some lessons learned early on. I mean, when you think of your leadership career, and we can just say specifically the last, couple decades at Gibson, what do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned that has helped you be better and be more effective?
I still think a lot about, and I don't know if you do, they talk about assessments of what things you're born with, what are innate within you and what do you learn over time. And sometimes, if you have skills you're really good at, and maybe a lot of it did come in some innate born way, maybe you just got lucky in that regard, or that's something you had. But it's something that I think's probably always been within me, but I didn't appreciate it a lot, Rosie, was this idea of like this resilience and grit and playing the long game and just kind of never giving up and quitting. And so if I kind of think back about the number one thing over the last 20 years here at Gibson, it's that we didn't quit. We didn't stop. Even when things got really tough or we screwed up these first couple of offices that we opened, I tell the people, we've got some people originally who are the original folks that joined us still here. And I'm like, I can't believe you hung in there with us sometimes. Like, I cannot believe like what you endured and you're still here and made it. But we never threw in the towel. And I think there's a fine line, and you have to have, let's speak of another working genius skill, discernment, to recognize when it's time to pivot and adapt and move. So it's not being with your head in the sand and just continuing to do the same thing that's not working. But I just think so much of success in life and in business is if you just stay in the game, like one more play, just all you got to do is one more play than if somebody else stayed in. That, because if you stop playing, you can guarantee you're not going to win. That's the one guaranteed way to make it. Just hang in there, keep trying, try something new, adapt, pivot, move, and you'll get there. It's amazing how many, you don't have to be the most talented or whatever if you're just willing to kind of hang in there and keep going. I don't know if you found that to be the case in your life, or if I'm allowed to ask the host here,
Yeah.
how would you answer that question?
Oh my God, I haven't even thought about that. I mean, I've learned so many lessons. I think that, all the crap that you go through that sucks at the time. I think I was on someone else's podcast and they were asking a question about, would you do anything differently? I'm like, that's a hard one, because it really is the challenges and the squiggles and the detours that teach us the most. That's where we learn what we're capable of, how strong we are, where we want to change when something isn't going well. And it's like, that's not who I want to be in my life, or that's not the kind of impact I want to have. So what am I going to do about it?
Rosie, I'll give you a good example. It just
Yeah.
happened last week on that. If we had, great person here. She's one of our executive assistants, and at a stage in life where she moved back to a former employer of hers from 20 years ago. It's just going to be it's going to be a better fit longer term for her. And we all missed her, and we're going to miss her. It just took place. But we had, I don't know, 40 people got together. We had lunch for her this week. And I was looking around the room. I didn't say this to anybody at the time. And it was a great send off. And I teased her and told her I hope they went out of business and she'd call us back. And I actually would, just go nuts in the past. And I literally had this moment. I thought in my head, I'm like, I was proud of myself. I've matured a lot. It put so much into recruiting some people, especially I think I did this with younger people out of school. I'd be following them for a couple of years. We'd get them on board, internships, and then full time. And then they'd get this amazing opportunity. And instead of being proud of the fact that we identified some great talent early, we built them up, we helped them be successful. They've got a great opportunity ahead of them. Wish them well. That a lot of them come back. I would kind of get up in them. I'd try to resell them on staying. That never works. And all I would do is cause them all kinds of angst. And I'd feel like the next day, I'd just like, what did I just do? I like trampled all over them. So I was sitting in that room like that. And like, yeah, okay, I've gotten a little wiser, older here. And
You're like, I'm growing.
I'm growing, hey. But like that's one of those things, right? Like, hey, when people need to move on, it's actually a cool thing. It means you've done something right to help them, and it's give them a great send off. They added a ton of value here, and maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't. It doesn't even matter.
Right. Well, and I think that when you have a good experience and someone's supportive of you and like, hey, I get that, like we don't have anything more where you can grow, but I want what's best for you. I mean, first of all, like they're going to be your biggest cheerleader. If you want to go work somewhere, here you go. So I think a lot of times when we think about I'm just say people who are recruiting talent, it's not just current and future talent. It's thinking about, people who leave your organization. Are they leaving as a champion of your organization, regardless of the circumstances of how they left? Like we have a client that had to do a reduction in force, but there are actually employees that are thankful of how human they've been and how transparent they've been, knowing they had to make really difficult decisions and are still referring people there. So that's a sign of like, you're doing something right, when that happens. So yeah, I mean, I could go, oh my God, I have 5 million missteps and screwed up like everything, and I still screw stuff up. But every Friday, I've talked about this in other podcasts, but every Friday we do a check-in for the end of the week, and we just do a like peak of the week, valley, anything we need to sync up on. But the valley, we call it F Up Friday. And it's what's your biggest squiggle, detour, or, AKA F up. And I always go first as a leader. And so I'm always like, okay, I know I have a gajillion this week, but now we have a Slack channel, and it'll be like, oh my God, F Up Friday on a Tuesday. Here we go. But what it does is it normalizes that messiness and by me going first, it's like now it's like, oh, people aren't afraid to come forward and go, I screwed this up. We're like, ooh, that's a doozy. All right, what are we learning from it? And going back to this, everything comes back to process apparently today and systems, but some of our best system improvement, our best processes have come from those F Up Friday shares where we're like, this didn't work. I don't like how this is, etc.
Well, I love that too. And given the, a safe place to, hey, we're going to make mistakes, we'll adapt, we'll figure it out, and we'll keep on moving. Everything works so much better.
100%. So speaking of messing up and learning, so one of the things, as you know, Tim, that I am obsessed with normalizing the messiness of being human, and that even yourself, being as successful as you are, that there's a part of us inside that's still like an insecure 10-year-old kid tried to outrun this head trash that we created in those early years. So what I would love for you to share in the spirit of transparency and courageous vulnerability is, Tim, what is a self-limiting story that you still tell yourself sometimes? And when it shows up, how do you move beyond it so that you can still show up as a leader and have the impact you want to have?
Yeah, I'll give you this real recent example here. So we just in the summertime we merged in with a larger group of majority employee-owned insurance agencies around the country. Super excited about it. It's been great for our people and for our clients. And during that courtship phase, they've got at the holding company level succession needs coming. And at that stage in my career, there's so much great stuff happening at Gibson. I really loved doing that, but I kind of let my ego get involved and stepped into that role and said, sure, sign me up for that. And the holding company, we're growing a lot at Gibson. The holding company is really growing. And so I started in on that, and I was concerned about it. And I literally just recently here, barely like 90 days into this, told the two co-founders that I need to step out. And I know it was kind of a bomb to drop on them, and it wasn't something they loved hearing. But I started looking at this, and to do the job right for all of our people, I really needed to be traveling to another city that's 4 hours away every week and doing all those kind of things. And something that's I've really gotten better at is really is being a dad and being a husband, being involved, being present. And it took a couple of months here of going through that and reminding myself of what's really important. And so that was really hard because I thought this would be a really neat thing to do as kind of a capstone from a career standpoint, head up this really large organization. And yet I realized that wasn't the right fit. So I stepped back out of this role and going to spend my time still just focused on Gibson. And that was hard. I'd just gone on a big listening tour, the whole company, talked to a lot of people. So, I felt like I was letting some of them down, but it was really cool to hear the response back from so many of them that, hey, well, I'm disappointed. I think you would have been amazing in that role. I actually really respect you a lot and appreciate that for you. This is something that's really important in the time you have and with your family and everything, that you decided to choose that over this really interesting other role. So, it's kind of new news. I haven't really shared that with a ton of people, but it's tough then. And so as much as I feel like I've grown a lot and I don't let my ego get in the way, I did, and I felt like I needed to do that role, and wasn't going to be the right fit. And I wouldn't be doing this justice if I didn't give my wife credit on this too. It's either the fourth or the fifth time in my career or life, 30 years or so together, where she's done a great job of like sitting me down, like, you need to get your stuff together. You need to make a decision. You need to whatever. And other the rest of the time, she's great. She rolls with about everything, which, being a kind of fast moving, quick start, visionary type of person. I mean, that's a lot, but I always appreciate when she does that. And it's not a, you must do this. It's a, you need to sit down and figure this out. And I did and realize what I needed to do.
Well, kudos for our spouses and other people in our lives that hold us in check. But what I appreciate about all of that, Tim, is, I think about once upon a time when my, self-limiting stories, they still hijack me, but like they're better. But like when they were really hijacking me, and it was all about trying to like prove my worth through achievements, right? So get another degree, get another certification, do this, do this, do this. Like you're constantly trying. And there's a lot of leaders that are like that. And I had a dear friend who, God love her, and she's always speaks the truth. And she said, why do you feel at that time you need to get a PhD? Like, and I was like, I don't know. And so I actually took a semester off from my program and thought about like, do I actually really want this? Or am I trying to prove something or trying to like be something to somebody? Or is this actually something I want? Because it's a lot of freaking work. Right. And then I got clear of, no, I do. But when I got clear of here's where it's coming from versus that ego that was got to get more and more and more. And then it's going to mean something. It's like, no, like I do want it, but I want it to look sane. So it might take me a little bit longer to get it done. And I want it to look this way and not ruin my marriage, et cetera. So I love that you like, the ego caught you, but then you course corrected, and coming from that place of greater intentionality rather than reactivity is like stellar. So kudos to you. I love that. All right. Are you ready for quick questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. Fill in the blank. Living authentically is?
Being okay, being you.
Love it. When the world is presenting an opening, but you don't feel like showing up as a leader, what do you do?
I don't give myself that I think that leaders have a responsibility to continue being a leader. And so I know I got to show up to be a leader.
Suck it up, buttercup, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. What's something people would be surprised to know about you?
I'm super open and share lots of stories all the time, but some people know this and stuff too, but I called CPS on my parents when I was in the sixth grade. They're wonderful people, by the way. My dad grew up on a farm, and I think he wanted to recreate farm life for us, even though we didn't live on a farm. So he thought that it was appropriate the summer between sixth and seventh grade that it was time for me to have my first full-time 40-hour-a-week job. And so he said I could work outside at the house for free, watering his trees and plants and pruning his apple trees and things like that, or I could go work for somebody that would pay me money to do it. But either way, I was going to be working. And so there was actually a large apple orchard down the street, and I worked there for a while. And the kid next door to me, his parents were exactly opposite of my parents. And she said, I just can't believe what they're doing to you. It's illegal anyway. And I'm like, and I was so defiant and everything, even back then. I'm like, what do you mean illegal? She's like, well, you're 12. You need a work permit. Do you have one of those? No. And so I looked in the yellow pages or the white pages or whatever, and I got on with Child Protective Services, but I did stop short of giving them my parents' name. So when I waltzed in the door that night, the guy I worked for, I never showed back up. He called my dad. My dad's home waiting for me. Like, where have you been? And I'm like, well, it turns out that what you're doing with me is illegal. And anyway, I coughed it up that I didn't actually give their name up. And then I got in a lot of trouble. And then the guy at the orchard's like, hey, I don't know what's going on with you and your dad. I got apples that need picked. And if you want to, here's $2 an hour. And if you don't, I don't really care. And so I protested, Rosie, for about 3 days at home. And I was getting assigned chores, and I'm like, fine. And so I went back to the apple orchard and made my $2 an hour.
Oh my God, I love that so much. That's amazing. All right. What is your favorite go-to movie?
The Usual Suspects is always just a ton of fun. And I could watch it 100 times. I know exactly what's going to happen in the story, but I love how clever he is. Kevin Spacey throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
I love it. With the go-to, right? You can watch it a bunch and you're like, I don't care. All right. How about your go-to song?
Go-to song, probably Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones. And I think my Spotify stats would prove that out too.
Nice. I like it. What is something you can't live without?
My family, yeah. I had a week like about a week ago. Actually, my wife was traveling. The boys are out of the house, and my 16-year-old daughter is social and has a driver's license. And yeah, like the first half day was kind of fun, and then the rest of the 3 or 4 days is kind of lonely. So yeah, I need my close humans around me.
I love it. I love it. What is something in your ordinary daily life that makes your heart happy?
I love team victory. So whenever I've done things, individual sports or whatever, sales, I like, yeah, okay, I can lead whatever company I'm at in sales, but it never felt as good as doing it with other people. Even like getting in trouble when I was young, if I wasn't doing it with my buddies and had stories to tell about it, like doing something just to do it never has mattered as much to me as a team victory. So I love just the simple things. I was walking around the hall today, and one of our salespeople, something we had talked about at breakfast last week, he put into effect. He needed to skinny down and get off a couple of boards so he could really focus on what he wants to achieve. And he's like, "Hey, I had the conversation, and here's how it worked out." And like it just made it warm my heart, hearing that.
You're like, yay! I love it, right? I love that. I love that. What are you grateful for right now?
Just I know it's gonna sound cliche, but life and health. I had a huge health scare late in 23. Thought I had for about 45 days. I thought I had cancer, and I had to have a big tumor removed. And they assured it with me it was cancer, it was so on. And after they took it out and removed it, they sent it to 3 different labs. It took 11 days and came back, and it was just this big fatty tumor. So I mean, I had the tumor and needed it removed, and that was plenty rough. But that life perspective, and I can only imagine people who have, in fact, one of my best friends and our COO here, he calls it my fake cancer in a very loving way. But to be able to experience just a small amount of empathy and the life perspective and some of those things a few years ago, it really did help me get even more clear about what's important to me in life, but without actually having the damage to my body and everything going forward. So gosh, I can't, the people who go through transfusions and all kinds of treatment and everything, I can, my short little window is as much as I hope I ever have to deal with it.
God, that's a whew, like good, good.
Yeah.
All right. So, last closing question, Tim, if you could challenge leaders everywhere to practice this one behavior that would create more human workplaces and equip everyone to show up as a leader, what would that be?
Start in early on succession, whatever level of role you're in, you're a supervisor, you're the CEO, build other leaders around you who could, if need be, so from an emergency risk standpoint, we're in the risk management business, could step in and be a plausible replacement for you. Or, the better the offensive plan long term, whatever that transition looks like. But just pour into those people around you, and it's okay. And it's kind of scary, I think. Old school, geez, am I training my replacement? Are they going to be my replacement before I want them to be? But it's crazy to do that. And so just creating these opportunities and seeing people grow and succeed and everything. And frankly, for me, maybe I'm lucky, but it's actually worked out to be, my life is so much better because I have some of these great people around me who've taken on things that are a lot of work, but they love doing them. And I get to just mostly do the things I want to do nowadays. So selfishly, it's great too. But I see too many leaders, Rosie, that wait way too long to start building a bench that could succeed you. And if that's 1A, if I give a short 1B, it's they don't have to be perfectly ready to put them in the game. I mean, get them there, start working on them. We all got opportunities probably before we were ready to. So give them that shot to actually succeed sooner and before they're ready, because they probably are ready. You'll help them, they'll get there. And it works out so great.
I love that. I mean, as you know, we do a ton of work with our clients on assessing their leadership bench strength and then helping foster intentional development to level up and have that for foresight with succession planning and whatnot. And it does make a huge, huge difference.
But you have to get some reps, right? You actually have to provide those opportunities and give them the space to do it. It can't just be, I mean, hey, you're in my plans, whatever. It's you got to put them in the game and let them go.
Yeah, give them a taste here, opportunity, let them lead this, let them try that because yeah, and I think there is this, oh, what value do I have? But what is that old? It's like an African proverb that, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that so often succession planning is done half-assed, if at all, and is done in like this secrecy, ooh, we have, versus like, no, you need to actually include people and develop them and say, hey, here's things we need to expose you to if you're gonna even find out, you might find out you don't even like it, right? So it's like, why don't do that ahead of time versus have a secret plan in place, or you do it very reactively and you find out it was the wrong choice. So I love all of that. Well, Tim, it's been so fun reconnecting. Thank you for being so transparent. Thank you for modeling the value of human-centric leadership and systems and just everything that you're doing. And I'm so excited for you and the success that you're having at Gibson, and that you are clear where you want to go. And this has just been awesome.
Oh, thank you. It's been a ton of fun. You're a pro. Yes, great questions, and excited for you too with the upcoming book launch and everything too. That's going to be exciting. I need a signed copy. That's just my one thing. I forgot to negotiate that into the fee, but
You will absolutely get a signed copy.
okay, deal.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Hey, thanks, Rosie. See ya.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to peopleforwardnetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.